What's up, lovely people? Welcome back to another video right here on Entrepreneur Podcast Club. I'm your host, Mr. EPC, and today I've got yet another very special guest on my podcast. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for my very special guest, Andrew McGee. So, welcome to the show first and foremost, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
So,
buddy.
no problem. So, you've been in property for the last 11 years. So, what was the first property you bought, and how much did you buy it for?
Yeah, so first property I purchased was a two-bedroom end terrace property that was in great condition, pretty much rental ready, and I bought that for £80,200. That was in I think it was December 2024.
Okay, fantastic. So, in
Sorry,
terms
sorry, 2014, not 2024. I'm getting ahead
2014,
of
okay.
myself.
Okay, fantastic. So, in terms of that property, was there any work that had to be done, or was it just a minor refurb, or just lick it up?
Um, So there was a kind of, to be fair, now looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have, but there was a little bit of wallpaper and painting to be done in the property. Um, I think the home report valuation in the property was about 80,000, and I paid just slightly over, which nowadays I don't really do much of, buying slightly over. But when I did do the light renovation on it, within the space of, I want to say, 3 months, the new tenants who were in asked if they could change everything. So I kind of learned that I probably shouldn't paint what I think's nice and just let it be.
Okay. So, in terms of your strategy, your property strategy, what is your strategy that you're using?
So I kind of look at twofold just now. Regular buy-to-lets I really like. You hear a lot of talk nowadays about people saying, "Oh, buy-to-let's dead. You don't make any money." That's just not true, especially with some of the deals that I'm getting just now. Buy-to-let makes up probably 90% of my portfolio. And then I dabble a bit in serviced accommodation as well. So that's more of like your either contractors, Airbnbs, kind of short-term stays essentially. And then lastly, I'm moving on now, kind of laterally towards HMOs. So I'm in the process of securing an HMO here up in Scotland. So I think with those three strategies, that's a good way to build your portfolio.
Okay, fantastic. So, you mentioned service accommodation and
Yeah.
Scotland as well. So, was there a legislation change regarding service accommodation in Scotland, and how did that impact you as a property entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, since I've been buying the past 11 plus years, there's been a load of different changes. There's been changes even from kind of things like additional dwelling supplement, ADS. When I was buying, ADS was 3% of the purchase price, and now in Scotland it's a way up to 8%. So you're having to factor in quite a bit of a chunky additional charge from what you were initially. When it comes to short-term lets, Airbnbs and things like that, there is quite a lot of legislation involved, but it kind of varies from council to council. So it depends on the local authority of how well they are at approving things, how well they are at getting things through. So to give you an example, Edinburgh, which is obviously quite a popular location for Airbnb, Edinburgh City Council are just terrible in terms of getting things passed for Airbnbs and short-term licenses. Whereas when you look at like Lanarkshire, where I've got mine, North and South Lanarkshire, they're a lot more forward thinking, and they say, look, we get your application in, make sure that everything sits okay, fire regs wise, legislation wise, and then you're good to go. I think it probably helps with my background. I've got another few different businesses that I run. One of them has government contracts involved, so we've had to pass a lot of red tape before, and we've had to kind of comply with a lot of legislation, especially legislation that kind of moves and updates pretty frequently. So I think with having that experience, it's kind of set me in good stead for property where if there is new legislation in place, right, okay, I've got management companies in place, I've got letting agents in place, and they're staying on the forefront with that. I would rather do that than kind of have things go awry and then it's me that's hit for it. I would rather employ the people to come in and take care of that.
Okay, fantastic. So, in terms of doing that outsourcing, does that save you a lot more time to concentrate on growing your business?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I think there's a kind of running joke between me and a few other business owners. I pretty much outsource my full life, to be honest. I've got, I think, probably about 8 or 9 VAs now working for me. I've worked with some VAs since 2016. And that's just in all aspects of my business, my day-to-day, calendar, scheduling, outreach and stuff. But in property specifically, I remember very early on, as soon as I got my first one, I thought, right, I don't want to give myself another job here with either dealing with the compliance side or having to deal with trades and stuff for tenant issues and things like that. I thought I'll get a management agent in place, pay them a percentage fee, and then they can obviously deal with the tenants, deal with any inquiries, and make sure that the property is up to date legislation wise. So things like Legionnaires certificates, gas certificates, EPCs, energy performance, all of that kind of thing, and just make sure that they take care of that. And it just allows me to focus on going out, getting the deals, and then passing on to them for management.
Okay, fantastic. So, mention there about deals. So, do
Yeah.
you just source for yourself, or do you sell deals as well?
So I've only really started selling deals recently. And realistically, if I'm being honest, the only reason why is just because I can't buy everything myself. So, which I would love to do if I could buy every property deal, then I would, you know. I think it was the tail end of last year or maybe mid last year. I started packaging some deals and selling them across, and it's things that are specific for the investor. So I do have a couple of channels that I've set up, which are like WhatsApp channels, and of course there's certain groups you can post in and things like that. But I tend to get a lot of clients coming to me directly and saying, Andrew, look, I know you're active in property, you're buying properties yourself. Um, this is my criteria. This is what I'm looking for. Is there any way where you can kind of bespokely source for me directly? And I'll say, yeah, no problem. So I can kind of go through a discovery call with them, onboard them, find out what they're looking for, and then it means that I'm then actively actually looking for that person. And I've had great success in that the past year and a bit, and doing that just with people who are looking for certain criteria. If it's a rental ready property, or if it's a flip, or if it's within a specific criteria, then I almost act on behalf of that person when I'm out at viewings and things like that, and working the numbers.
Okay, fantastic. So, let's talk about challenges that you face since going into property. Because on social media, when you go on there, there's, all seems, sunshine and rainbows, but that's not always the case. So, what are some of the challenges that you faced whilst being in property?
Well, I think that realistically, if you are somebody that is legit in property and legit buying for yourself and actively building and scaling your portfolio, I think on the building and scaling point, if you are growing, then you're probably going to be absolutely skint all the time. So I'm in a position just now where me and my wife are constantly going back and forth about me being always skint because I'm always firing all my money into property. And I think if you're serious about it, it's the same as reinvesting in your business, you know. Um, yes, I've got a nice car and I can do things and stuff like that, but I don't really overly care about that as much as I do getting the next 10 or 15 properties into my portfolio. So definitely a challenge is being able to be durable and manage not only risk, but manage stress as well. I just went through a big refurb there on a property. Bought it for 85,000, spent 30,000 on it and got it refinanced at 165,000. And that was in the space of about just under 3 months. But in order to do that, I had to outlay about 51 grand of money. But on the back end, I knew that I was able to refinance it and pull out 52 grand plus. So it's a cracking deal, but at the time, you're dealing with the stress of trades, schedules, things going wrong, leaks happening, um, materials not arriving. So there's that element of project management that you're having to kind of deal with. And then on the back end, you're the one that's funding the full thing as well. So you've got the stress of, right, okay, we've got bills to pay, we've got trades and contractors to pay here, and then you've still got your day-to-day kind of bills and dealings to run with. So I think that if you are serious about property and you're trying to scale to kind of 10 million plus or whatever, you need to understand that in the beginning, for a long time, you are going to be pretty skint because you're just constantly reinvesting refinance money, rental property profit back into the business to acquire and buy more properties. And also taking on private finance as well is something that I've just done recently. And that can be a bit stressful because you almost value private finance more than you do your own money. Like if it was my own 20 or 30 grand, I would be like, oh yeah, that's fine, whatever. But because it's somebody else's money and obviously you're giving them a fixed return, you really you really value their money a lot more because you don't want to let them down. You want to build a good relationship up with them. So yeah, there's a few different moving parts, but I think that the biggest thing really is just making sure that you're durable and you are resilient because there's a lot of days, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. There's a lot of days that can be brilliant and you're like, great, that's a cracking deal I've got, or that property's now rented. Then there's another day where it's like, oh, by the way, there's a boiler that needs replaced and the pipe work, so there's 2 grand straight away, just out of nowhere.
Yeah, some really good points that you mentioned there. So let's talk about property education. So,
Yep.
did you get any property education? And if so, what are the benefits of getting property education?
Initially, I didn't know. I think that a big theme about my life really has been kind of doing things just because I want to do them and not really knowing anybody else that did it before or anything. When I first started, like I used to be a competitive bodybuilder. When I first started doing that, I didn't really know anybody that did it. I just thought it was cool. I wanted to do it. Then when I opened up a gym, didn't know anybody that did that, wanted to do it. Started a training academy business, delivering education for public contracts. Again, just like, oh, that's a good opportunity, I'll do it. And it was the same with property. I just thought, okay, I'm making some decent profit from my business. What should I go into? All right, okay, property seems to be a way where people build wealth. And I just went and bought my first one. Maybe made a couple of mistakes, maybe paid, you could say that I uh, paid over the odds for it because I paid the home report value. But I bought that property in 2014 for 80,200. I got a valuation done this year. It's now worth 165,000 and it's had rental consistently for the past 11 years. So I wouldn't say that it was a bad investment. I would say that I was probably smart getting in at the right time. When it comes to the training and education standpoint, the only real kind of training I went through was just recently was I went to a castle retreat with a few property investors who are in a good position. They've got big portfolios, are doing well, and it was just to learn from those that had scaled their portfolio to 10 million plus. And that was really good. It was really enjoyable. I think nowadays, and obviously I love education because I own an education-based company, but we are delivering SVQs, NVQs, vocational qualifications that are accredited and government funded, and they're also government backed as well. So there's a level of quality assurance there. I think that when it comes to property education in as a specific, I would say that those who are doing a lot in property and doing very well in property. Can you learn from them? Absolutely. Does that mean that because they're doing very well in property that they're going to be a good educator? No. I know some guys with the biggest portfolios that can't really tell you how they done it, you know. They've got hundreds and hundreds of properties, but they wouldn't necessarily be going out and teaching it. On the flip side, you get people who don't own any properties and have never done really anything, and their business is to teach you how to get into property, but they've never got any property themselves, but they make money through teaching you how to do that, you know? So I think if you do your own due diligence and look at it and go, right, okay, this person buys a lot. Nowadays, you can look on things like Companies House and see charges and things like that against the company for lenders. You can really see a bit of transparency there. And I know, listen, I know that Companies House isn't everything. There's a lot of people who might own shares in a company. They might not be a director. They might just be a PSC, person of significant control, and that company may own properties. But I think that you can kind of see through bullshit pretty easily, especially if you're experienced, and therefore you can make an educated decision on should I go on this person's training course or not. There is some charlatans in the industry, of course. Excuse me. Of course, that's just always going to be the case with any industry. But as far as like become retired in 7 days and things like that, I don't think it's I don't think it's really practical. Can it be done? Yeah, maybe, but it's not like everybody's going to end up doing that.
Yeah, some really good points there about, especially about doing the due diligence as well. So you mentioned some really good points there about whether they're experienced or not. So let's say somebody's a complete novice in property. They go on social media. They're like, "Oh yeah, this person such and such is selling a course." What advice could you give to someone like that who's a complete novice in terms of identifying whether that person has done what they're selling or not?
So I would say, I would probably look at a couple of different things. I would look at it and say, let me do some background research on this person as an individual. So I would look at it and go, right, okay, their social media for the past year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, where have they came from and what have they done? So the majority of people that have kind of came up through property, they might have set up a different page, right? And it might be like their Instagram is just property and success and stuff like that. Have a scroll back and look and see how long they've been doing it for. We're into the time of recording just now, we're into February of 2025. If I look back at somebody's profile and they set it up in mid 2024, June or July of 2024, and they're trying to push me a financial freedom and 7 days course. I'm going to look at that and I'm going to be like, okay, so how long have you actually been buying for? And what financial freedom have you gained in property other than just selling this course? Are you financially free because you're making income from selling the course, but you don't actually have rental income and profit to allow you to be financially free? Which one is it? So look at that first and foremost. If they're a very new player to the game, I'll then do a bit more DD and say, right, okay, what's their company name? How long have they been buying for? What properties, what addresses have they been buying for? Um, and then that gives you a better idea of how legit they are or not. I actually had somebody, think it was probably about summertime last year, who had seen that I was doing the sourcing thing, and they said, "Look, everything looks great, but I just want to see it for myself. I just want to see it from my own eyes." So they were in Inverness at the time, which is quite a wee drive away, maybe like 5 hours away from where I am. And they said, "Look, I'll drive down. I'll spend the day with you. If you can just kind of run me through things, I'll buy you lunch and stuff." And I said, "Look, what I'll do is I'll take you to all of the properties that I own, and I'll run you through the numbers, where they are, how much I paid for them, when I bought them, what the rent is. And I think I did this. I think maybe I only had like 14 at the time or something, 14 properties. So I drove this guy around all of the properties, ran him through everything, and at the end of it, he's like, right, you're you're legit. Like that's everything checks out. I'm willing to invest in you. Whereas there's a lot of people now that are doing property training that you never see them in any properties, you never see them buying any properties, and you wonder what do they actually own. So I would definitely say like transparency of addresses and not necessarily like specific addresses, but just like certain deals, certain areas, what they've done is going to be key as well. Because if you say to me that you are a property educator and you own 100 plus properties, you shouldn't really have any issue telling me like 5 or 10 addresses of what you own,
Mhm. Some really good points there that you
you
mentioned.
know?
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned previously about previous businesses you've had. You mentioned one, the
Yeah.
gym. So what other businesses have you had?
Yeah, so as of the time of recording just now, I currently still own a leisure-based business, which is a gym-based business. We had a site for 11 years. We've got another site that's been running for um 3 years now. So just regular kind of group training style gyms. Um, Site that was run for 11 years. We closed down that one. Landlord changed that to an every delivery place, which was great. So the other one that's been running since it's just coming up in 3 years now, and they are group-based training, so it's all fully coached. We've got coaches in there that are delivering small group sessions. So it's more like kind of bespoke. Bespoke kind of one-to-one without having to pay one-to-one prices essentially. The other business I have, so that's a training-based business. So currently just now we do logistics training for driving goods vehicles. We do um, leisure training for your gym instructors, your personal trainers, things like that. And we have contracts with Skills Development Scotland, which is the government entity. So we'll go into a business and start delivering more than apprenticeship programs to their staff, upskill them, get them to a level where it's going to be beneficial for the business owner. We've been doing that. That business has been running since about 2014 as well. So that's a long-term one, that one. And we have SQA accredited centres that deliver the qualifications and then assessors that go out and do the assessments on them and things like that. And then I also have another business which is probably not as active in this one recently, but I had a sports supplement business. So we, especially when I was in the height of the gym business around about 2016, 2017. That was a business where we had protein powders, we had our own pre-workouts, we had our own fat burners and things like that. So especially the pre-workouts, it was probably one of the best pre-workouts that I'd ever actually tried on the market that we formulated. We worked with Muller at the time to do the formulations for the protein and things like that. So we were having to maybe pay a bit extra because we were going kind of direct, but it was a great business, you know, and it obviously supplemented the fact, no pun intended, supplemented the fact that we had the gym business there as well. You know, a lot of users were buying the supplements, we were selling them online through Shopify and things like that as well. So that was another business that kind of sat to the side. But as far as the businesses go just now, I've only got maybe about an hour a week involvement in the leisure-based business. Get a great area manager, get great coaches. They run that business. I've got a Zoom call once a week with them. And then the training academy business, I've got about a day a week involvement in that. The rest of the time, just realistically, is property heavily specific. And I think the tail end of this year. I'm due to open another two businesses, but I don't want to touch on them too much because we've not finalised anything yet. So once the ones are done, I'll be more vocal about it.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Seems like you're a very busy guy. So you mentioned previously how you outsource everything, and
Yeah.
majority of your time spent in property. So, what does a typical day look like? I know it could vary, but what does a typical day look like for someone who's in property and got multiple businesses as well?
Yeah, so I have specific days for specific things. So to give you an idea, Wednesdays, so even starting from Mondays. Mondays, I have that hour Zoom call with the guys for the leisure business, for the gym business. Um, I will tie in with my VAs for specific things. So I'll tie in with one of my guys who oversees everything. I'll tie in with one of them that oversees certain elements of property. I'll tie in with my leisure manager, and I'll tie in with the my partner in the training academy, and we'll just look at planning out the week, setting KPIs for the week, of what we need to do. Monday is realistically catching all of that stuff. Tuesdays is specifically just a training academy day where I will go out, we'll meet employers, we'll sign up new apprentices, we'll tie in from an assessment standpoint as well. Wednesdays are solely viewing properties. So I am meeting with estate agents, I'm in properties, I'm meeting direct with the sellers to either get the deal to buy for myself or to pass on from a sourcing standpoint. And then Thursdays are solely a meeting day. So if I've got certain meetings that are to happen during the week, there'll always be a Thursday. And then a Friday is a day where I'll review how the week went. So all the KPIs that we've got, all the targets that we've got and things like that, I'll get all of that reported back to me. Did we sign up a certain amount of apprentices this week? Did we sign up a certain amount of gym members this week? How many properties did we secure for investors? All of these are delivered on kind of software and spreadsheet format to me so that I can have a brief overview and see what's going on. And I'll review everything there as well on a Friday and make sure nothing's missed out. Um, that's how the kind of standard 5 days work. In that, I always try and ensure that I'm taking a Saturday and a Sunday off so that I can get all of the five things done within that time frame. I feel as though we've got enough staff and enough capacity to do that. And then to integrate with that, I make sure that I get 5 days worth of exercise done. I make sure that I shoot pool once a week with my friends. I get a dinner or a lunch with my mum and my dad, and I see my kid and my wife over the course of that week as well. So I make sure that I slot in all of the other things that are kind of me time and friends and family as well.
Okay, fantastic. So you mentioned there about having, spending time with family, kids, all of that good stuff. So when you first started going down the business route, there must have been a lot of sacrifices that you had to make where, you weren't spending as much time with your family. So
Yeah.
in terms of that, how long was it after that you start to have a lot more time, outsourcing bits of your business in order to get some of that time back and spending it with family?
So I would say I was kind of fortunate that I was in business first before I met my now current wife. I I started business in 2013 and I met my wife in 2014. Well, I met my girlfriend at the time, she's only my wife since 2021 there, but I was fortunate that I'd already had that mindset, that structure, and that vision of where we were going and where I was going before I met my wife. My daughter, Mila, she's now coming up on 3 in April, so everything was already in place and in motion before she came. Um, I had Mila when I was 31, and at that point, at 31, to be fully honest with you, I could have retired from the property income I was making. So I was quote unquote financially free. I could use that as a tagline if I really wanted to at 31 years old. So that gave me a bit of comfort and a bit of a blanket to say, right, okay, everything's taken care of, bills and such has all been made passively. Now I can spend a lot more time. But I think I'm always a big fan of when I get something, when I get a certain part of any of the businesses or my day to day. How can I process that? How can I create a standard operating procedure for that and then outsource it to staff or VAs and things like that to allow me to go on to the next thing? And it's just always a continuation of that. It's find out what the thing is, manage to perfect it, pass it on to outsource it, delegate it, and then maybe in the space of 3 or 6 months, review if it still needs to be done, or if it can be done better, or done through AI, or just eliminated completely, and then going back and back and back. So I think by having that mindset, that allows me to take weekends off, for an example, or kind of finish up by like 5 o'clock, in the kind of night time, you know. And to be honest with you, it allows me to be in a better physical and mental mind space, which allows me to be in a better position to uh, capitalize on opportunities because I've been able to do that. Whereas if I was trying to chase a million different things at once, there would be opportunities that I wouldn't even see because I'm too busy being wrapped up in the day to day. So it makes me a better business person and I would say a better family man and a better leader overall.
Okay, fantastic. So I mentioned there about financial freedom. So
Yeah.
how long did it take you? How many years did it take you to get financially free just from property?
That would be, I think it was about six and a bit maybe, to get there. I knew the kind of number that I needed just based on my outgoings, and I knew how many kind of rental properties I needed, how many properties I needed to buy. I never really, because I'm only 34 just now, so I never really thought, oh God, I need to be here by this amount of time, because if I just fully retired, I'd probably just be really bored. So it was more, I remember like my big milestone was, oh, I want to get to 10 properties. You know, it was like, I want circa £1 million portfolio. I want to get to roughly 10 properties. And then when I got to that, it was like, I want to get to 20, I want to get to 30, I want to get to 100. So I don't think it'll ever change. You know, even if I've got 1,000 properties, I'll probably be like, oh, well, I want to get to £1 billion valuation. So there's always going to be something, you know, but I think that was that was maybe one of these ones where I achieved it and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then it's like, right, okay, what's the next deal? You
Yeah,
know? So yeah, it wasn't it was they always say that the destination isn't as um important or isn't as fulfilling as the journey really is. And I'm a big believer of that. Of when you get there, it's like when you get a new car for the first couple of weeks, you're like, oh, this is great. And then before you know it, it's just your car, you
yeah,
know?
100%. So let's talk a bit about yourself. Where were you born and bred, and where did you go to school and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so I was born and bred, born in a place, born in Glasgow, brought up in a place called Denniston, which is east end of Glasgow. Then my mum met my stepdad at the time, Owen, moved up to a place called Newt Hill, which was in Lanarkshire. I think I was about eight when I moved up there, and then was brought up through my primary and secondary up in Lanarkshire and Newt Hill. Met with my good friends, who are still good friends to this day, at about 16. I was boxing, competitively boxing from about 13 to 16, so met my good friends who are a kind of good bit older. I'm 34, the other one's 40, the other one's just turned 50. But I met them when I was 16 and we got on really well. Obviously, they were boxing and fighting at the time as well, so there was some camaraderie there and some common interests. And then from there, just moved up now to where I am in Bothwell, nice kind of area. But to be honest, people always kind of say like, "Oh, my upbringing was really hard and things like that." Don't get me wrong, like we barely had any money growing up. I kind of talk about how we were given this kind of government released stew when I was a young kid. It was just myself and my mum that lived together, and there was this European Union stew that was given to all the kind of deprived areas. So we had like hundreds of tins of this stew that was given to us, and it was like it was maybe 1996, and I remember the best before date being like 2010, and I'm like, that's really weird. That's like 14 years. Even at that age, I was like, that's like a long expiry date. The stuff must have been almost nuclear, you know, that they just passed it out to all the deprived areas, and we ate this for years and years and years. Maybe that kind of pushed onto my bodybuilding times, but we didn't really have much money growing up. There wasn't I didn't have like a car or anything like that for my mum. And we just made it work and we just figured it out, you know. So I I had a great childhood and I had a great time growing up, and I wouldn't change anything at all for the world. Um, but money I never really thought about, you know, until I maybe got a bit older, 16 plus, and I started looking at the stock market, started looking at setting up businesses and things like that, and just knew that I wanted to acquire and grow and progress. You know, everything's always been about getting 1% better every day. And business is a great scoreboard for doing that because there is no end. You know, there is only milestones. So there is an infinite means for you to continually progress. And that's why I love it overall.
Okay, fantastic. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen, for this podcast. I've been your host, Mr. EPC. Big shout out to Andrew for taking the time to speak to me today. And if you did like this podcast, please do hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. And do look out for the next podcast. And thank you very much for watching.